us the intel about the next generation of Bulldogs. This is Before the Hedges, brought to you by Kroger.
Let's go, I'm a Bulldog.
Hello, Dog Nation, and welcome into Before the Hedges, brought to you by Kroger. I'm Kaylee Mansell with DawgNation recruiting insider Jeff Sentell. We're filming this on a Wednesday. At the time you're probably watching this, there are March Madness games going on. Jeff, is March Madness the greatest postseason sports event, and who's your winner?
Ooh, that's interesting. Greatest postseason sports event. I think that's a lot. You got to get like a Game 7 type situation. I still think the Game 7 is really good. But my winner, I hate to say this, I don't believe in the SEC tournament, predicting future outcomes for the NCAA tournament. That's why I think I like Auburn. I actually do like Auburn. I just think those have got enough really grown men. If you've played more consistent basketball over the stretch, wild card-ish with Duke, but probably the most important viewer-friendly topic we can share, Kaylee, is you got to get that pick in, folks. If you got to get your pick in, because if you don't pick the Final Four, you've got the first four, the early play-in games, then you've missed out.
Yeah, you're right. I thought there was a but coming. Like, I don't believe in the SEC championship tournament winner, but
yeah,
I don't see it with Auburn. I see it more with Florida or Tennessee or even in Alabama. I don't see it with Auburn. Lost, the last 3 of 4? Mm-hmm. I think one of the other teams is going to be, if there's an SEC team that pulls it out, I don't think it's going to be Auburn.
So which SEC team goes the deepest?
Florida. Hottest team in the SEC. Just so happened they were the winner, but they're clicking at the right time. And I hate it.
Better not catch Brandon Adams hearing you say that.
I had to cover Eddie's ears the other day. But Florida would be my pick. Well, anyway, so enough on that. Let's talk some Georgia football. This is what we've got going on today's episode of Before the Hedges. Georgia finally has a new commit. Excited to break that down. It's been a while. It's the 3-star wide receiver, Brady Marchese, so we'll have a DawgNation conversation with him. Then there's a lot of things going on within the recruiting grapevine right now. A lot of people talking in Jeff's ear, so we're going to find out what that is, and we're going to do it quick 5 style. Then we'll continue on with our Next Generation series where we let you know everything you need to know about all of the signees in the 2025 class. This week it's going to be the 4-star tight end, Ethan Barbour, who's already made some waves at practice. Then we'll follow it up with our bold predictions, and then the debut of Sentell's Mel. We took your questions from the comments, and hopefully Jeff's going to be able to give you some clarity on some of those things. But first, let's start with this. Georgia finally picks up another commit in the class of 2026 after a wide gap. It's the 3-star wide receiver, Brady Marchese, out of Cartersville High School. We're going to get the chance to hear from him in just a moment. But, Jeff, what's the one thing that people should really listen to in this conversation? Kind
of Georgia has a type now. They have that Northwestern type receiver, under the radar a little bit, highly productive, physical, probably more of a football player than a wide receiver. See Lad McConkey. Even the great old Hines Ward was a guy like that. But it's really interesting, Kaylee, because the board at wide receiver is really deep right now. And first of all, folks, Brady Marchese, roll it through your tongue like you have some rigatoni. It's Italian. His family background is Italian, but it's a Sopranos episode, and he's one of the latest boyfriends for Meadow. As we kind of talked about inside the DawgNation inner sanctum earlier this week. But Kelly, it's really funny because he's a 3-star, but let me take you back a little bit in the rewind machine. This time last week, Georgia sent a text to Brady Marchese, and they're like, what do we have to do to get you to commit to Georgia, to come to Georgia? Now, Kaylee, there's not a lot of folks that are getting that text right about now, but so that kind of was the love it kind of implanted in him. And then he goes and watches practice. Kaylee, man, he was going to Georgia's practice, and he's like, I'm just going to see a practice. Love it. Love Georgia. I'm going to see how they practice. Lo and behold, he watches practice. He watches how Georgia gets after it. He loves the spicy Kirby Smart mic, the firecrackers that happen in practice. And he's like, I got to be here. Nobody does it like Georgia. I got to be a dog. So then he goes and tells multiple people, I'm all in, I'm a dog. So he made the trip up to Athens with much love from the Dogs, only a 3-star, and then he leaves a commitment when he didn't think he was going to make the commitment that soon.
So Georgia picks up a super undervalued in-state commit. Here's Brady Marchese on why.
Brady Marchese, class of 2026, Cartersville High School. I chose Georgia because just even after going practice, I've been up there a few times. Just everything felt right. It felt like home to me. It's the fact of that I'm playing against the best of the best every day, and that's what I want to. I want to be able to compete and not just be able to and I want to be able to go and win a championship, and that's what Georgia's all about.
Brady, everybody's going to look at you and say you're a 3-star, probably going to get your 4-star. You're the number 60 wide receiver in the country, but that just says, hey, this is a guy that gets first downs. This is a tool to win a football game. For you, what do you want people to know about you besides that, man?
I just obviously let my game do the talking. That's for sure. I mean, people can say, "Oh, 3-star" and all this, but when I get in the field, that's when things are going to show for sure.
So it was fascinating to learn your kind of aha moment when the lightning bolt hit you. It's this past week. You're going up to Georgia, and you're going for a practice,
Yes,
but
sir.
you're not going up there thinking, I'm going to commit. Something just hit you in the middle of that practice. What hit you which said you had to be a Dawg?
So, I mean, it was obviously an option for sure. It was definitely thought in mind of committing to Georgia that day. But just after seeing how how differently they do things there, how hard they work and how they get during practice, and seeing that nobody else really gets after it like they do, I think that's what really pushed me to commit after practice for sure.
Who'd you tell first?
I told the assistant receiver coach, and then I told when we were up in a meeting, I told Kirby, I think I got some news today. And after practice, me and my mom and dad and my sister went up to Kirby's office, and he said, "How are we going to get you to be a Dawg?" And I said, "I'm all in."
What did Kirby say when you told him I'm all in? What was that like?
Oh, we got up and hugged right away. It was crazy. My mom was in the back tearing up and everything. It was a special moment for sure.
Why did Georgia tell you they wanted you?
I think just because my style of play, and obviously I know they have a thing for receivers like me, and I think the way that I can change the game when I get up there for sure.
What motivates you, man? Everybody's got a reason why. I love this question because football gets hard. Man, you wake up with bruises on Saturday morning where you're like, man, I don't even know what color that is. For you, why do you play this game?
I grew up loving football. That's been my favorite sport since I was a kid. But what motivates me the most, I would say, just kind of always being underrated. I mean, I haven't always been obviously the biggest, the strongest, which that kind of changed after my freshman year. I started putting on some weight and muscle, but it's just definitely, I'd say, being underrated and kind of talked over, and that's why kind of blowing up later in my high school season still kind of meant a lot to me, just because now people are starting to finally see what and who I am.
I got to ask you about the Cedartown game last year, man.
Yes, sir.
Obviously everybody's a competitor. Obviously everybody, when you get your oil check, that's one of those moments where people are like, let's see what this Brady kid's all about.
Sure.
How did that, I guess, boast, how did that chirping, as I understand, I don't know if you chirped back, you just said, we'll figure it out on the field. What was that week like for you? Was it?
I'd say that the preparation that week was definitely different than any game was, for sure. I mean, obviously there was a whole bunch of talking going on, and we got a kid named Colin Pope here who played at Cedartown, and he's all in the group chats with them, telling them that they're staying, all this. They were on Instagram Live saying stuff. I try not to get myself into none of that for sure, but I think that definitely hit something in me to do what I did during that game for sure.
When you hear that, is that disrespect, or is it just light a fire?
I'd just say it's fuel to me. I mean, that's just lighting something up in me to do more in the game for sure.
What do you like best about Georgia?
I would just say obviously the winning program there, and just the way they do things, how hard they do. It's anything they're doing it at 100% for sure, and I think that's what's the difference between them and a lot of other schools.
When they offered you in January, did you get the feeling it was going to be Georgia? Or what was that like?
When they offered me, I called my dad as soon as I actually did not think Georgia was going to end up offering me.
What were your views of the Georgia practice? What stood out to you? Did you watch the receivers? Did you watch the DB?
I watched the receivers the whole time. I think what stood out to me is just the way Coach Coley coaches is different than any other receiver coach. I mean, they're hollering out there, but I mean he's getting on you for everything you're doing wrong, and I think that's a big thing for sure, because some coaches don't do that.
Brady? Nobody ever just calls you Brady, right? Somebody said they call you Cheesy or something.
They call me Cheese. I mean, that's some announcers at some schools can't pronounce my last name right, so they're like Marchese and everything. But no one really calls me Brady. It's either Cheese or Marchese, a whole lot of the things.
Brady Marchese. Bulldog committed over the weekend. Sounds like Sounds like you're very committed, very much all in. What would it take for somebody to flip you here, man? Would it take a whole lot, or I mean, how locked down is this right now?
I'm locked down right now for sure. It would take a whole lot for sure for someone to flip me. Yes, sir.
Brady, man, appreciate your time. Cartersville High School, 2026, class of 2026 receiver. Thanks for spending some time.
So I want you to throw out everything you know, because some people hear 3-star wide receiver and they're like, well, we need more. We need more. Undervalued. He's eventually going to end up getting that 4th star. You look at his high school stats from this year, over 1,000 receiving yards, over 20 yards per catch, 11 total touchdowns on the year, and even in their final game when they lost to North Oconee in the Final Four, 180 receiving yards and 3 touchdowns in a game where it mattered the most. I got the chance to see Brady Marchese twice this year, and in the 2 times I got to see him, he won the game ball for our Peachtree Sports Network. The only player all season long who won it twice. So much talent, and Georgia's getting an under-the-radar guy that a lot of people this season will realize that he's a lot more talented than the numbers say.
Couple stories here to unpack. You ask the coaches at Cartersville about him, and they're like, they say football player, physical, all that stuff. Yeah, he runs a 4.40 laser. He did that 2 years ago at Coastal Carolina. He thinks he can go faster than that. He was timed at 22 miles per hour on the Catapult GPS for a game last year. That's all really good and all, but like Connor Foster, the head coach at Cartersville, told me, he said, listen, when it comes down to it, we don't call plays. We call players. And Brady Marchese is one of those players that you just find a way to get him the ball. We kind of highlighted a game last year. Cedartown had a great football team last year. They had multiple P4 signees on the team, P4 scholarship offered guys, committed guys on the team. And somehow, you just got to love that social media, Kaylee, whether it was Instagram or some chirping. My man Brandon likes to call it chatter, online chatter. But the word got back that Cedartown had said, their defensive backs had said, that Brady Marchese would not have 5 yards receiving in that game. Yeah, he had 5 catches for 132 and a touchdown, especially a big touchdown in the corner. All this stuff is great. It gets James Coley to go take a really important coach's visit to Cartersville earlier this year. And he knew he could run. He knew he was 6'1", 185. He knew he had GPS. He knew he had stats. He knew he was strong. He knew he was physical. But he asked the coaches, he says, I've got to know this. Is he an absolute competitor? Does he hate to lose? Does he work as hard as anybody on your team? How can he handle being coached hard? How can he handle competitiveness every day of his life at Georgia? The answer he got back convinced James Coley that he was a priority for Georgia in this class. That's why they were texting him and saying, what do we have to do to get you to be a dog? So early, Kaylee, in March. That's why he makes the commitment. Like Roldan didn't even commit until July of heading into his senior year. Ladd wasn't even found until January, right before he signed in February. You see Georgia has found its type, its guy. I can't wait to see SEC foes, Kaylee, when they see Georgia in a couple of years. And it looks like they've got 3 Ladd McConkeys out there playing wide receiver because it's coming.
Last 2 things on this. Yeah, we should have put the flash warning that is Cartersville in their home stadium where they flash the purple lights. I mean, you just got a chance to see the film here, and even when I got to watch him for the first time, the things that stood out to me, obviously the speed is one thing and the ability to get open just because you're fast, but also it's the yards after catch. There's a lot of times where him and a defender will be really close, and he just kicks it into a whole nother gear, and it never looks like he slows down. I think that's something that Georgia's been missing. They tried it with Arian Smith, but Arian's problem was he just couldn't hold on to the ball. Never seen that been a problem with Brady Marchese, and you can just tell by the interview with him how well-spoken he is, and in my mind, that would make him a really great recruiter for this team, so he's going to be able to help out with that in this 2026 class.
Kaylee, funny thing, you ask him who he wants to, you're a commitment. Who do you want to come be a dog? This might set up nice for our next segment. And he said, Jared Curtis, I committed. They handed me his number. I'm already all about him. I'm already all over it. Final thought, DawgNation, did you see that first clip on his highlight tape? It was a bubble screen. It was a screen to the wide receiver. Kaylee, do you know anybody in that Georgia staff that likes to call himself a screen? Maybe that might be a fit there.
All right, so that's going to wrap up our talk on Georgia's newest commit, the 3-star Brady Marchese. And when we get back, like Jeff said, we're going to talk about Jared Curtis as well as some other recruits who have been on the trail. But first, we want to remind you that here on Before the Hedges, we are brought to you by Kroger. And it is now that time of the year where you can get your kids and getting them to start learning how to cook through Kroger with the Kroger Chef Junior program. Each week they do a different recipe where they'll teach your kid how to make the recipe. For Saturday, March 22nd, it's Indian chicken salad flatbread. It's only $7 a child, and it also comes with an apron, a chef's hat, a cooking tool, a recipe card, and a badge to really make them feel like a Master Chef Junior. And if you don't necessarily love what they're cooking that week, there's a new recipe available each week, providing a unique experience each time. So to learn more about this, you can register today at KrogerChefJunior.com. That's KrogerChefJunior.com. We're at this point of the year, Jeff, where guys are taking visits here, guys are taking visits there. You mentioned that Brandon likes to call it the chatter. There's a lot of chatter going around. I want to catch up on what you've been hearing, and we're going to do it quick five style. It's been a while since we got to put our fives up. Let's go ahead and start with the first one. You mentioned Jared Curtis. So Jared Curtis has now taken official visits to Oregon and Georgia, which seem to be the top two and the only two. Where do things stand with him, and when can we expect this decision to be made?
Kaylee, it's a question I get a lot, obviously, as you might imagine. I can walk the dog in the neighborhood and somebody be driving by and they're like, hey, man, what's up with Curtis? What's going to happen with Curtis? I will refer to a visual aid for this one. Miss Kaylee is wearing a lovely shade of yellow right now because everybody always asks me, how fast are the dogs driving? How fast should DawgNation drive on this guy? Green light, yellow light, red light. Definitely not a red light, folks. Maybe a yellow light here because I think the decision is under deliberation. What we heard over the weekend from sources, people we know, people in the know, was that the family feel was certainly there. It's the connection there. It's close. It's everything he loves about Georgia. He's been there for games. He feels like a priority. He's watching practice. Georgia, I was told, just feels like family and still feels like family to Curtis and his family. You know, the only other appropriate visual aid or emoji I would drop on DawgNation here with this one is I think it's going to happen soon. And I think cross your fingers kind of applies right here because you've got really Georgia has, I believe Georgia will not make a decision on next quarterback until Jared Curtis gives them the news. I believe, and listen, Kaylee, to be frank, I think agents are definitely involved here. Mm-hmm. I would not expect any more comments. I would not expect any interviews. This is now being handled by representation. So I've been told soon. So soon to me means before April, and which will give everybody a chance to move on if they're not the school. But I would say this, Kaylee, that yellow light, we've been at that yellow light for a while.
Yeah.
And it might be fixing to turn green.
Well, speaking of Oregon, Oregon also recently hosted another priority top target in the 5-star linebacker Tyler Atkinson. Is this something that DawgNation needs to be concerned about?
Yeah, I think so.
I didn't even sugarcoat it.
Yeah. I mean, Oregon. So, first of all, this was his first visit to Oregon. Been wanted to for a while. And, you know, Oregon has cash reserves. That's the best way to say that. Mm-hmm. And what they did on his visit, you know, Tyler even said he had to see it. It's a place he had to see. And he gets there and he's walking around the complex. They're giving him the white glove VIP tour, right? Like he was just designing the new Air Jordan shoe or something like that. And they had his logo, acting up logo, on top of the practice field on the like diamond board, the Jumbotron on the practice field, acting up. There was an Oregon slant on it. Kaylee, you know that landed well when the university, the program is kind of showing respect to your brand there right now. We've said this for a while. We said this on our early shows. Georgia and Oregon are going to have their dukes up for a lot of players in this class. There's Jackson Cantwell, there's Jared Curtis, there's Tyler Atkinson. Oregon is a player in all these guys, and I think what Georgia does versus Oregon will go a long way towards whether Georgia has a number 2, number 3, number 1 class in the country this year.
Well, we talked about a few weeks ago how the overall in-state talent at the line of scrimmage was just down this year, but one of the guys who is one of the better ones in the state, Georgia's now in the mix in. It's the 4-star edge, Dre Quinn, out of Greater Atlanta Christian. Can the Dawgs pull this off?
Kaylee, this is they call him Draco.
Draco Malfoy?
Yeah, he used to be a running back of all things. Now he's 6'4", 230. He's at Greater Atlanta Christian, and he was one of those guys we got a chance to speak to recently. And I finished the call saying, "Wow, stock way up there." Chidera Uzo-Diribe, the edge coach, has done an amazing job recruiting this guy. Dre told me that he is absolutely his favorite coach in recruiting right now. He said that, maybe I'm not supposed to say this, but I like him as much as anybody that's recruiting me right now. He also said if it was up to him, this is really cool. He said if it was up to him, meaning Coach Uzo-Diribe, he would take his commitment and he'd be done and it'd be all over with.
Wow.
And that's a lot of love. He says, that's my guy. I love everything about Coach Uzo. Coach Uzo is really eating in this recruitment right now for Dre Quinn, and he's going to take a bunch of officials. Georgia, Clemson will be his first 2 out of the gate this summer, but he really likes the Dawgs, Kaylee, and he even likes the Dawgs more than I even thought he likes the Dawgs.
Well, he'll take his official visit on June 6th, so more on that later. There's been a lot of talk lately about UGA taking top running backs in this class. It's going to be really tough to get in the mix for 5-star running backs because they're just so expensive and you have to spread it out. But they're now in the mix for a 4-star running back who's a top 100 player. So not a 5-star running back, but still top 100 player overall. It's Javian Osborne out of Forney, Texas. Could this finally be the running back that Georgia's been looking for?
I think it's interesting. He's one of those guys when you do the reporting, Kaylee, and you start talking, you're like, you come away from it thinking, wow, I know this guy like Georgia, but stock way up on this. First of all, he's from Texas, but he's not interested in Texas or Texas A&M. SMU is the school he really likes in the state of Texas. But Kaylee, let me ask you this. If this sounds like there's something there, there's some birds chirping there maybe. Okay. Play some rom-com music or something in the background right now. But he visited Georgia for a junior day, right? Said he absolutely loved the place. That was in January. He just visited Georgia this past weekend. He said he absolutely loves Georgia. He's going to take his visit to Georgia for G-Day.
Wow. 3
visits, April, March, January. Kaylee, I would probably by now put the seal of true contention around Georgia right there. Interesting back. Like, he has got great film, great tape. You see him, and there's a little bit of mix of Jahmyr Gibbs. There's a little bit of mix of DeAndre Swift. There's a little bit of even Maurice Jones-Drew to his game right there. And, Kelly, this is some real love. Like, this is like Mary J. Blige, real love, like you're talking about from both Dre Quinn and Javian Osborne. There's like so much going on right now that I thought Quick 5 was the best way to get that information, get that intel in the ears of DawgNation.
Well, we've got one more left for you, and it's the 5-star cornerback, Jordan Edmonds, an in-state guy. Now, he was supposed to commit a couple weeks back, delayed that commitment. It had him crystal balled going to Alabama for the longest time, but he still hasn't made a decision. So what's the latest on him? Is Georgia really in the mix?
They are, Kaylee, and it's kind of funny because number 1 corner in the country now, and he's at Sprayberry High School in Marietta. And you look at Jordan, and Jordan was a guy, he goes to the Navy All-American game in Texas as a junior. Stock goes way up, maybe like 90 to 100 slots. Now he's a top 30, top 20 overall prospect. But he was going to commit in February, and then he's got this tattoo, Kaylee. He's got 2 tattoos. One of them is of his mother's name. Always, that's going to not go wrong with that. That's going to test really well with that marketing demographic. And then he's got one that says, everything happens for a reason, good or bad. And it was really crazy. He wanted to commit, Kaylee, but there were some logistics issues. Sprayberry High School was out for break that week on his birthday. They were also doing some school construction that made it really hard for him to host the ceremony. Mama jumps in and she's like, let's just make sure we're 100. Let's just make sure we're sure about this. Now he's going to take some visits. He just visited Oklahoma. Florida was in his Final 5. They've lost all the coaches that were recruiting him. One went to the Raiders, one went to Miami. So Florida's basically out of it. Oklahoma's the other school, but it's really Georgia, Tennessee, and Auburn. He's going to visit all 3 of those schools in the next week. Mama Janae Edmonds told me another story. Like, she initially wasn't really sold on Georgia. She heard things, the rumors, the culture, the headlines, or whatever. And then she got to meet the staff. She got to meet Kirby Smart specifically, and it really changed her mind. Almost a total 180. She said having Kirby Smart come to their basketball game, Jordan's also an amazing basketball player, it really just showed her he's a real person. But like, he was just Kirby. There was no buffer of coaches around to kind of spearhead and steer the conversation where there was no dull gaps. That was just pure Kirby. She's like, nobody's like that. Nobody can turn it on and just have that. He was literally sitting next to me and my mother, Jordan's grandmother, and listening to us heckle the refs and just having a good time. So Kirby, Georgia, Dante Williams, the cornerback's coach right now. I don't know if Georgia is the team to beat right now, but I know Georgia's going to have some legs in this race.
How much longer is this going to stretch out?
I think he's going to try to get to his official visits.
Okay.
And his official visit for Alabama is June the 20th. I think Tennessee is June 13th. Georgia is May the 30th, I believe. So into June, he's probably going to make his decision. Really sharp kid, though. I mean, he's one of those guys that probably the best thing I can say, the quickest way I can say it is he's a guy that is the face of the program, an SEC Media Days type guy. Jordan is really an amazing football player. He's 6'2.5", 185, great ball skills, great physicality. Somebody's going to get a good one. And for the Dogs, if they lose him to Alabama, 5-star number one corner in the country, that's going to sting.
Team leader, SEC Media Days type guy. That sounds a lot like somebody we're going to talk about here in just a moment. But before we get to that, summer vacations are coming up. We're kind of in this weird part of spring where it's warm today. It's going to be cold all next week. So start thinking about your vacations. And so there's no better time to look at somewhere like Daytona Beach. Super easy access. If you're in the state of Georgia, you can just make that drive. If you're a little bit further away, you can fly directly into the Daytona Beach International Airport. Daytona has so much more to offer than just laying by the ocean. You can kayak, you can hike, you can play golf. So many other things to do. So now's a good time to score great deals on coastal accommodations, and you can do that by visiting DaytonaBeach.com/hotel deals. That's DaytonaBeach.com/hotel deals. As a continuation of our Next Generation series, we thought it would be a good week to bring out Ethan Barbour for our DawgNation Next Generation. Ethan Barbour, the 4-star tight end, Milton High School, state champion, along with another guy that we'll talk about here in a couple of weeks. But Ethan it's tricky with him because his rankings were kind of all over the place, Jeff. So why was that, and what's all the buzz kind of been about around him in spring practice?
I know dog fans don't like the word buzz because it relates to that
the hype.
North Avenue Trade School, perhaps, and that mascot as well. Yeah, I like the way you were going with that too. But Barbour has considerable juice. Like, he's one of those guys that I'm always hearing about. The way he practices, the physicality. Like, folks around Milton, they had a different position for him. They didn't call him a tight end because he played a lot of X receiver the whole year. They called him the ASS kicker because he would just whip the person in front of him. That's what he would do. Kaylee, he is a guy. You're right about the range of rankings. I think On3, 24/7 had him somewhere around 9, 10, 11, 12 tight end in the country. ESPN had him number 1 overall, and he is going to hit in Athens, Kaylee. He's a guy that, Kirby was talking all this. He was sharing all his thoughts this week about freshman not in shape, got to play faster, got to grow up, got to get ready. Ethan wants all that smoke, man. He is about that. He is a true alpha, and he can do, I'm going to say this, he can do all the things that Brock Bowers did for Georgia. Can he do them as well as Brock Bowers did? No. But nobody in college football history has been able to do that. But Ethan Barbour, that, hashtag throw to the tight end, Kelly, this is no joke. He could have 3 catches for 75 yards and 2 tutties against Florida, and he would be in that locker room saying, "Coach, can I see the film of that block I made on number 27 downfield that sprung my boy C.J. Wiley for a touchdown?" Mm-hmm. That is that type of kid. That is that type of demeanor. so well spoken, very, very driven young man, and he's a goal setter, and he checks off his goals.
Yeah, we'll show you his player card on the screen here. Again, his rankings were kind of all over the place, but luckily the 247 Sports composite compiles it all in together, which ultimately had him as a top 200 player. Number 9 tight end, 6'3", 235. I think about something that you were just talking about with the film. If he did this, this, and this, he could have 10 receptions for 10 touchdowns in a game, and he's still going to put those blocking highlights first, Jeff.
He is, and it's funny. We talked to Todd Hartley at the Sugar Bowl, and I was like, hey, man, I knew the answer to this question because Ethan Barbour, folks, is a dog. And I was like, how's that fitting in? How's everything going with Ethan? And he's literally like telling him, he's like, hey, coach, can we meet? Can we go over film? Can we work on what was going on right there? And Todd Hartley was like, man, I love the enthusiasm. I love the vigor. But, man, you've been here 2 days. 2 days. We're not trying to get you an All-American yet, but that's the way Ethan Barbour rolls. That's the way he gets down, is he's trying to soak up and absorb and to get himself as ready as he possibly can to help Georgia.
And one thing I love about Ethan Barbour is the fact that he was one of the earliest commits in the class and never strayed away. Committed to the Dawgs September 23rd, 2023. We actually have it here why Georgia was able to get in so early and be able to stay with him all that time. Here's Ethan Barbour.
University of Georgia.
Ethan, I think Kirby told you we're not going to take anybody else. Mm-hmm. We're not going to accept any commitments until you say no or you say let's ride. What did that mean, and how special was that?
That was really, really special. It showed me that I'm top priority as a tight end. It showed me that they want me and nobody else. They was going to wait until it could be December, it could be January, it could be February, it could be even the summer. They were still going to wait, see what I was going to do because I was their priority. So that was really, really special.
To follow up on Jeff asked, why did you choose now to commit to Georgia? You've got a little over a year before you would sign. Why did you choose now to jump on board?
I chose now, the recruiting process is speeding up now. More and more people are committing earlier, so, it's about time to lock up your spot, and you have the opportunity that you want, you're going to go and take it. This is the opportunity I wanted, so I thought I should take it now.
Ethan Barbour helped recruit a lot of guys in that 2025 class. You've seen some of the film on him. You know what he's capable of. Is this a guy who can get in the mix early?
I think it is. I mean, Georgia's had some great tight ends. I think this year is the year for Jaden Riddell, who basically had to learn how to play tight end, had to learn how to block. Those are not weaknesses in Ethan Barbour's game at all. Those are strengths in his game. He can play X-receiver. He made a leap playing for Milton last year. Kaylee, you were there at the state championship game where he basically took over the first half of that game. While it would look like a pinball machine or an old school Tecmo Bowl game with all those scores going up in the first half, I believe there was something like 13, 14 scores in the first half. Ethan Barbour was a highlight maker in that. And folks, Georgia right now, you try to find the guy that has the right mindset to go along with the skill set. And I would say the mindset of Ethan Barbour is going to help him play just as much as his skill set. And that skill set was rated as the number 1 tight end in the country by One Service.
Yeah, from what I can gather about him, he's a very Kirby Smart, Todd Hartley, blueprint staple player. So excited to hear more about what Ethan Barbour does in spring practice. So in just a moment, we are going to continue to do our bold predictions. We've really had to start getting creative with these now, but Wednesday night, tomorrow's Thursday, March Madness starts. Everybody's going to be watching basketball, and if I were you, I would suggest that you have a long drink in your hand when you've got these games going on, because nothing goes better together than basketball and a finished long drink. There's one for everyone depending on whatever you like. If you're on the healthier side and you want that zero sugar white can, if you need something on the stronger side, maybe it's been a long day, go with that black can. Can't go wrong with the original blue. And then you've also got the flavored ones like your cranberry peach. Jeff has told me that there is also a pineapple one that I have yet to try, but you best believe I'm going to get my hands on it real quick. If you want to find out how you can get your hands on a long drink, you can go to thelongdrink.com. Go to the search bar, type in the city that you live in or your zip code, and it'll tell you where you can find the nearest one. So as basketball is going on this weekend, think about having a long drink in your hand to just make it a more complete thing, because March Madness is here, and I promise you it's better off with a finished long drink. So, all right, speaking of basketball, I am going to maybe make my bold prediction around basketball. So here's bold predictions. I'll just go ahead and make my point really quick. If Georgia can beat Gonzaga, they're going to beat Houston because they've got the size and the guard play to be able to deal with them. Houston is a great rebounding team. That's what they do well. But Georgia also does that really, really well. I don't know if they've matched up with a team who can guard or who can rebound the ball as well as Georgia. So I think that Georgia's got enough size to be able to pull off the upset. Plus, Houston in general has not had a really great tournament run despite always being one of the higher ranked teams. So if the Dawgs can get past Gonzaga, they're going to beat Houston. That is my bold prediction. I've got it in my bracket.
Wow, Kaylee, that's bold. Sometimes we have fun with this topic and you're like, we want to have predictions that we can check real quickly. It's pretty funny. We would probably say something like, hey, Kaylee, I'm going to make a prediction that if your prediction comes true, then everybody's going to have a lot of long drinks by the time this weekend is over.
Houston also, they played 2 SEC teams this year. They lost to both. They have not beaten anybody in the SEC.
There you go.
So
quality prognostication right there. I'm going to go with one where we're going to have to hold it. We're going to have to look for receipts on that one, this one, but I think it's kind of what the feel is right now. I think I went through my archives and my records, and Kaylee, the fewest number of 5 stars Georgia has ever signed in the Kirby Smart era, I believe, was 3 in one class. I think that number, Georgia's not going to hit that number this year. I think it might be 3 or less. They're definitely not going to go jump above that tier right there. But hey, it's part of the game, part of the new world of college football. A lot of these times when we're looking at prospects and evaluations, you look for 2 fits. You look for, can he play? Is he competitive? There's also, what's the numbers going to look like? And now there's a lot more figuring out right now with before. That's why I think 5 stars are going to cost a lot of money. And that's why I think Georgia, it's a bold prediction, but I think Georgia will sign the fewest amount of 5 stars in the Kirby Smart era in 2026.
Who's the 2 or 3?
They're on the top targets list.
Okay, which we'll get to here in just a minute. We'll do our full class breakdown where we look at some of those top targets. We get to do the debut of Sentell's Mail, where we get to take your questions. No more question of the week. We took some questions out of comments. That way Jeff could give answers. So if you didn't get the opportunity last week, then make sure you leave a comment under whatever platform you're watching on. So that way you can leave a question and hopefully Jeff can answer it. So we'll show you the first question on the screen here. Okay, I like this one a lot. This comes from CK Emmett fan 7163. Says, the Oscars always give a cool swag bag to actors that get nominated. What swag do recruits get when they visit?
Well, it's kind of funny. Official visits versus unofficial visits. Somehow, Kaylee, I don't know what it is, but recruits, when they visit Georgia, they end up with apparel that is no longer needed by current members of the team. They end up with some shorts. Maybe they end up with a backpack. Maybe they end up with T-shirts, hoodies, or whatever. It's funny, if you never noticed this, when you're on a game visit, Georgia likes to have their stands, the West End Zone stands, full of red and black and dog gear. So they literally give Nike apparel or Georgia swag to wear during the game. Because you don't want anybody that's committed to Clemson wearing a Clemson shirt or a Florida shirt, or also somebody just wearing yellow or gold or blue. Those are not the colors. So they eventually, basically they dress the part to be in the Georgia recruiting section. Other thing you see a lot of is Georgia has a lot of these wristbands, these team affinity rubber bands that say, how about them Dogs or commit to the G's. That's something that's a staple over the years. Now we're talking about swag for an official visit. I have a lot of confidence now that that's when a lot of the numbers are expressed. Hey, this is your slot. This is what we'd love to pay you. This is what our offer looks like under the new House Revenue Settlement. That's what's part of the swag you're going to get coming out of the official visit. You also get fed a lot. You also get the chance to also, the photo shoots only now exist, and they used to be a staple of things all the time. They only now exist on the official visit.
I also think about the towels. I see players with their little towels. Yeah, the towels.
I could not complete this segment. I'm glad you reminded me of it. Everybody sees this, right? Somehow, I don't know what the order looks like for the University of Georgia, but every time we cover a game and there's a high school prospect and they were in Georgia gloves, these young folks, kids, they have like the coat of many colors, Joseph from the Old Testament or whatever. They've got literally gloves from all 110 Power 4 teams. Some of them do. Some of them have a collection. Then they go on Instagram and try to sell them through the DMs for anybody that wants them. But gloves are another thing that people usually always end up with, especially skill guys.
I always look for that too. All right, next question for Sentell's Mail. This one comes from Bulldog Big E. It says, how does kicking look? Do we need more legs from down under and another guy like Hot Rod?
Well, it's interesting. Bulldog Bige, I believe, right there, or Bulldog Big E. You see, Georgia's just working ahead. Like last year, they had Drew Miller waiting in the wings with Brett Thorson. Brett Thorson gets injured, can't work out, comes back for another year. So they've got the number one punter from 2024 just kind of chilling, who will return for another year. So that they've already got Thorson's hierarchy succession plan, for those that are watching that show. They've got it figured out. And they also took in, Peyton Woodring's got one more year. And Peyton, I believe, could go pro after his junior season. He may stay 4 years because that's something that kickers do. But they've already taken some five-star walk-ons in the past because Georgia, what they're trying to do is they're trying to make sure that they not only have Peyton Woodring's accurate kicking leg, but they also have a really strong field goal kickoff combo, kickoff guy combo, like a kickoff specialist. Because what Georgia wants to do more than anything, we think of that Notre Dame contest in the Sugar Bowl. They really want a guy that will put it in the seats or at least put it outside the back of the end zone so you don't have to worry about those things.
All right, last question for Sentell's Mail. This one revolves around position groups. So what are the two can't-miss position groups for 2026 that aren't QBs? This comes from Jordan Harris, 4698. The immediate one that comes to my mind is running back.
Yeah, there's a lot because they're going to probably lose some attrition in the room, especially. Cash Jones can't play forever, and then the Robinsons are also they've been around for quite some time, but
and they only signed one in the 2025 class.
Yeah, and I think they're going to have to tee up with maybe two, maybe three guys. But I like this question for a lot of reasons. I'm going to say can't miss, and I'm going to flip the script on it a little bit. Okay. What I mean can't miss is I think Georgia's going to sign two tight ends that can't miss, and that might be Caden Prothro, and that might be Lincoln Keys, who's committed. That might be Mark Bowman as well. Those might be the guys that Georgia signs. But the one position, Kaylee, they got to get right because they don't have enough of them right now in the program. Bo Hughley's looking good. Monroe Freeling may only have one more year. They got to hit on the offensive tackles. They need offensive tackles. Those are so hard to find. They got Ja Jackson, who's basically in year 2 of figuring out how to play football and how to transition from being a major college basketball prospect, fringe pro basketball prospect. They've got to figure out left tackle and right tackle. So I think that position, of course, we did throw out the clarifier that quarterback not included. Those are the positions I think that stand out.
All right, so that's going to be Sentell's Mail. If you have a question you want answered, make sure to leave it in the comments. Doesn't matter where it's at. We'll come find it and hopefully be able to answer it on next week's show. Now we'll move on to our class breakdown, which I'm excited for because we finally have another name added to the offense. So on the offensive side of the ball for the class of 2026, not only do you have the 4-star Vance Spafford, but you also get the 3-star Brady Marchese. So now 3 offensive commits when you include the 4-star tight end Lincoln Keys. On the defensive side of the ball, still the same. You've got the 3-star defensive lineman, Seven Cloud, who's coming from JUCO, the 4-star cornerback, John Tavius Wyman, and the 4-star safety, Zach Fort. Then you move on to the class snapshot, where you now have 6 commits, which takes Georgia from the number 22 class to the number 17. So they move up 5 spots, and now Georgia, the state of Georgia, officially leads again with 2 in-state commits. It's no longer a 5-way tie. Georgia has the most. Let's move on to our top targets because there is some movement on the list this year. The 2 that really come to mind on this slide right here. So Jordan Edmonds debuts at number 14. First time back on the top targets list. But then Ryan Mosley, the 4-star athlete out of Carrollton who made a huge jump last week, he falls back to number 12. So walk me through this decision.
I wouldn't say worry about too much with Ryan Mosley there. He seems very much loving all things that happen in Athens. He loves Kirby Smart. I think there's more names that are showing up in the middle of this that kind of bump things down a little bit. Jordan Edmonds, like I said, I'm acknowledging that I think Alabama is probably still the team to beat, but I think Georgia is kind of gaining now. Are they gaining like Usain Bolt? Or are they gaining like Brock Bowers catching that pass against UAB his freshman year? We'll see on that one. But there's something there. He's the number one corner in the country, and he's also a state of Georgia kid, so I think there's something there. Also, Jordan told me, pretty cool, him and his mom both told me that they named his top 5 and set his top 5 without any discussions of NIL whatsoever. So, and Mama said, Janae Edmonds, really nice lady to talk to, she said that we realize that the money doesn't need to come right away. If he becomes what he wants to be in this game, the money will be there.
I like that. That's what we like to hear. All right, we'll move on to our next page of top targets for the class of 2026. So we spoke about Dre Quinn earlier. So now he comes on the list at number 10. Makes a huge jump. Haven't seen him before. And then, of course, you've got a pair of running back duos in Carson Baker at number 8 and Jay Lamar, the running back out of Moultrie, at number 7. So now that we have talked about a different running back, I mean, does that mean that guys like Carson Baker and Jay Lamar are just completely out?
No, I don't think so. But I think what it is they become more expensive. Carson Baker is a guy, Kaylee, that he's running track. He ran a 10.63 at 6'1", 205, 206 pounds. So that's getting to be amazing speed for a 200-pound running back. Interesting stuff on Jay Lamar. Jay Lamar knows he wants to commit in July. Like there's a date floating around for July the 4th. He's not certain about that yet. There's been some reporting on that. I asked him, and he's like, yeah, kind of in that area. I don't know if I'm sold on July 4th because obviously nobody would be able to be at my school because they would be off. But something to monitor there. Like Georgia might very well take 3 running backs. Georgia just offered a really great running back out of Sequoia High School as well, who's a Georgia legacy as well. So Georgia's really kicking the tires on a lot of guys right now.
All right, and so now taking a look at our top 5 for the top targets. Number 5, you've got Kamari Brooks, the defensive end out of Bogart. 5-star offensive tackle Jackson Cantwell. Look, you've got Jackson Cantwell, Jared Curtis, Mark Bowman, and Tyler Atkinson, and it's all Georgia and Oregon for these guys.
It's a lot. Mark Bowman, now there's a lot of love for Bowman from USC now. USC is trying to pull that flip of Spafford from the Dogs, and USC's got this new campaign slogan, and I'm going to use that exactly the way I would say that, where they're trying to keep the best in California home, and that means Vance Spafford, that means Mark Bowman. I still find it very odd that USC saw Vance Spafford play 2 or 3 years of high school football in their state, and they couldn't think to offer him until maybe January or February of this year when he was already committed to the Georgia Bulldogs across the country right there. But this is where it gets hard, Kaylee. You asked me that question about the 5-stars. Well, Curtis, Atkinson, Bowman, Cantwell, Prothro. It's going to be very tough for Georgia to get more than 3 or 4 of those guys.
All right, now let's take a look at our just off the list. Got a couple pages for you. So the 5-star athlete, Derek Cooper, he comes down from top targets to just off the list. Is it a matter of it's just too expensive?
I think it's going to become that way, but there's also hometown. There's also running back fit, and he goes to Miami a lot. I think I see him staying in the state, but also there's going to be some significant compensation there as well. And even as good as Derek Cooper is, it's the same thing we could say about Savion Hyder, the other 5-star running back. Is Georgia's going to use allocation of his resources here? I think they're going to spend quarterback, they're going to spend for one specific certain linebacker, and they're going to spend for offensive tackles in this class.
So we've got a lot of wide receivers. 4 out of the 5 guys on this page are wide receivers. How many more wide receivers do you think Georgia's going to take?
Well, I think they're doing their diligence in terms of they don't know. Some might say it's like Vance Spafford insurance, but there's really a lot of guys they like. They really like Craig Dandridge at Milton. They like Kayvon Concearo at Houston County, another big receiver type. Coley likes to spread out his guys. I think if you look at the official visit spread, Coley likes to only have like 1 or 2 receivers on his board for all of the official visit weekends, and that's how he's able to spread it out. Davion Brown, they call him Fat Rat. He's coming back to Georgia this weekend as well.
We'll move on to our next page of just off the list. We've got the 4-star quarterback Landon Duckworth, which looks like it could be one of those options where if Jared Curtis does ultimately decide that he's going to choose Oregon, then Georgia might go all in on a quarterback like Duckworth. Out of Jackson, Alabama, and then you've got the brother of Minka Fitzpatrick, which is Justice Fitzpatrick, the 4-star DB out of Fort Lauderdale. Will we see any other quarterbacks come up on this list at any point?
Well, Dog fans would probably want me to put the name Bo Bentley on this list. That's the guy we've been talking about a while, I think is the guy that's, maybe he's not rated like Jared Curtis, but he's a heck of a football player, and he's ready to play right away pretty early in the SEC. He's supposed to visit Georgia over the next 5 days, so that's when you want to see what goes after that, because Bentley is trending to Oklahoma right now. He just took a visit to LSU, and you look at these receivers and you wonder, what does the Brady Marchese situation do? Is Bubba Frazier a duplication of skill set there? Like, we shall wait and see on that one.
All right, moving on to our next page of just off the list. So, Brock Harris, who has kind of been on just the list and then top targets and has come back. Now, he technically wouldn't play until 2027. Is that the sole reason that he comes on to just off the list, or is there anybody else in the mix?
Kaylee, that's a good question. I just think he's complicated because Georgia's maybe try to get Bowman. They're going to try and get Prothro. They're going to try and keep Lincoln Keys, who they really love, and they're going to get 4 out of 3 of the 4 top tight ends in the country. Really hard to do, but as we've reported, Brock Harris is going to go on his Latter-day Saints mission after his football season this fall, and that would probably make him more legitimately a class of 2027 prospect. I think right there, when I was trying to look at names and trying to get a guy like Dre Quinn on there and Jordan Edmonds on there, the priority part of this matrix, this equation, kind of hit me in the head right there, and it's like, probably don't need 4 tight ends inside the top targets right now at this time. It's really no discredit to the juice, I think, about how Georgia feels about Brock and how Brock and his family feel about Georgia.
And this is our last page of just off the list here. We've got some familiar names, but now Javian Osborne, the 4-star running back, makes his debut just off the list. And then do we have any update on the 4-star defensive lineman, Ernest Rankins?
Going to go visit Georgia pretty soon. Going to go see a lot of his schools. Kaylee is one of those guys that Georgia absolutely has to probably win in state because of the scarcity of premium elite DLs in this class. Braden Rouse, another guy out of Kell High School, he's going to visit Georgia again real soon for a spring practice visit as well.
All right, and that's going to wrap up our just off the list. Before we wrap things up, do you have any last piece of intelligence for us?
Yeah. I mean, I saw something really cool. I was visiting Brady Marchese this week, the recent commitment. And one thing I like to do is I like to ask the coaches. I do this thing. I say, like, okay, tell me somewhere, and it's kind of just trying to keep things in the family, but tell me somewhere I need to go eat, and bonus points if they sponsor your football program. So he told me 2 places in Cartersville. He told me, I don't know if this is pluggable, but I think Brandon's Book of Rules would probably allow it. There's one place in downtown Cartersville I went to go eat, and there was a thing next to the register that had, if you're hungry and you cannot afford to pay for your meal, these meals are paid for. And they were like, those old school receipts from a diner, that little thing that comes like on the back of it, looks like a steno pad. It moved me. So like they were like 3 or 4 bills for like $10 there. Like if somebody was hungry, they just go pull one of those tabs and they go have themselves some bacon and eggs or some sausage and biscuit or a pork tenderloin biscuit or whatever. And I just think in this world, that's just, there's great to see places and businesses that are still all about that. And if you guys are in downtown Cartersville, you know what I'm talking about. I would encourage you to join me in extending that tradition.
Yeah, and on top of that, the food is actually incredible, very old school diner-like. So I thought that was a great message from you, Jeff. With that, that's going to wrap up today's episode of Before the Hedges. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you right back here next Wednesday at 7 o'clock.
Let's go, I'm a bull.